format for tonight is that we will hear from each speaker for approximately 10 minutes. That will then be followed by the most important part, question and answers. We want to hear your questions. What concerns you? What do you want to know more about possibly? And we will do our best to address those concerns. Our first speaker is Anna de Buisseret. Is that a good pronunciation? Anna has a unique combination of legal training as a city lawyer, a business degree and several years of management consultancy, giving her the ability to apply her legal knowledge in a management consultancy role or vice versa. Her law degree was from Nottingham Trent University and a business degree from Oxford Brookes University. Experience has been gained in the top tier city law firm and now at a West End law firm specialising in all areas of employment law. Anna has also run her own management consultancy, Time for Balance, specialising in providing consultancy services to businesses in relation to their working practices, strategic vision and implementation, workplace change management, equal opportunities, discrimination, diversity issues, and corporate responsibility. Quite a mouthful, well done. In addition to the legal and consultancy services, Anna provides in-house training on employment and diversity issues, including disabilities in the workplace. She also works with a mental health charity. Anna has strong management leadership and team working skills, having trained at the Royal Military College, Sandhurst, and serving for 9 years as a Territorial Army officer. Please, let's give Anna a very warm welcome. Thank you, Anna.
So lovely to see so many of you here. Can you hear me? Is that right? What you also didn't mention is that I'm a mother, and I'm a mother of 3 children, and I consider that, as I'm sure you all do, to be an absolute sacred duty. So I draw on that experience as well. But also, I should tell you, I'm a local. I was born in Hurstmead Point. So my family lived in Burgess Hill for a while, so this feels like home to me. All of that experience led me in December of 2019, and I gathered intel immediately from the ground from a fellow veteran who lived and worked in Beijing and had done for 10 years, so I knew he knew, could read things between the lines that I couldn't from over here. And we compared notes, and after a couple of hours we said, yeah, we're not happy with this, we're going to go and talk more to our military network. So I reached out into the military, and we agreed that we all had to do some further intel gathering, and we've been doing that ever since. So I'm connected into an international military network of veterans who are brainstorming the situation. And one thing I can tell you, because it was some intel I got this week, is that an awful lot is happening behind the scenes that you won't know about, you won't hear about, and it is happening, and apparently we are winning. So I wanted to reassure you. So that's good news. So, I wanted to reassure you that, some people have been afraid about what's going on in the world in terms of martial law being imposed. But I can tell you, I work with veterans who have been to war, to Afghanistan and places, and I didn't. I was a survival instructor, so I ducked and dived. But these guys did, and the one thing they would tell you is they don't want to see war, but they also don't want to see people suffering, and they serve and protect, so they're on it, and I wanted to reassure you all about that. So on the legal side, again, my hackles went up. I read the Act and I thought, this is outrageous. And I was reading the debates on Hansard, and I noted that Matt Hancock in the second reading said, do you know it's taken us months to draft this? Which is what I suspected, because it was a 329-page document of very complex law. You don't draft that in a week. But also, on the 19th of March, it was downgraded to a... yes? So why do you need 329 pages of complex law? So hackles went up. Heard Lord Sumption speaking out, and I thought, yeah, his analysis is the same as mine, that they didn't, they were ultra-virus, they didn't have the power to make that act. They claim to have had the power under the Public Health Control of Diseases Act, but it doesn't give them the powers that they're claiming. And they should have used the Contingency Act. So I reached out for other lawyers, found them, and I've been working with them for a year. Jonathan's one of them, wherever he's gone. And we've been obviously gathering evidence, working with lawyers not only here but across the world, together to find out who the best experts are in each point that we're trying to work out what's going on, gather their evidence, cross-examine them, and then look at the legal framework to work out what laws are being broken, and then of course what we're going to do about it. Now to begin with, it wasn't that horrific. But as you know, I've gone public and said that on the analysis, this is a complete breach of the International Criminal Court's Rome Statute, and Nuremberg being replayed all over again, I'm afraid. So when I first went public to tell people that, I was shocked at how many people knew. I thought that people were going to be really disturbed and very upset, and I was dreading telling people, but I was really shocked at the people who came up to me and said, yeah, we know. And I said, okay, so are we at war? And various people, well, virtually everyone I've said, are we at war? They've said yes. And I said, well, who made the declaration of war? What was the declaration of war? And that's where I want to pick up on the law. Because actually, an unlawful act of war is to conduct medical experimentation or medical treatment on people without their consent. You don't even get to do that to prisoners of war in enemy territory. Okay? So this unlawful act of war is being committed by people within our society against other people within our society and against governments by governments against their people. So the military network I'm connected with, we've looked at this and said, well, what are the acts of war? And it comes down to the fact that we are all sovereign. As you know, we are born with inalienable fundamental human rights that cannot be taken away by anybody, with very limited exceptions. So for example, the right to life. The only time you can derogate from that is if you've been passed down a death sentence, having been judged by your peers and a jury in a proper court of law with due process. If the death penalty applies, then the state has the right to derogate from your right to life. The only other time is an unlawful act of war. So, claiming the right to derogate from your fundamental right to life in a public health emergency, no. The state does not have the right to do that, and nor does anybody else in society. Similarly, the right not to suffer torture, cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment. Okay, because obviously that goes to the right to life. That cannot be derogated from either. And you don't get to torture prisoners of war. You don't get to give them cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment, even if they're your prisoner. And the Court of European Human Rights ruled, in the case of Pretty versus the United Kingdom in 2002, that giving medical treatment without consent amounts to torture or degrading treatment, cruel, inhumane, degrading treatment. So that's where we are, folks, which is quite horrific when you think about it. That all these companies, or the NHS, or our own politicians, claim that they have the right to derogate from your fundamental right to life by mandating that you breach your bodily integrity. Now, in terms of companies saying, well, we have to put all these health and safety measures in place. Yes, they do, because obviously you have the right to go to work and not be harmed by your employer. But your employer has the duty of care to you, not to harm you. And that's provided by way of a risk assessment, which has to be an individual risk assessment under Regulation 3 of the Health and Safety Work Management Regulations 1999. I dream this stuff. Literally, I wake up in the morning and think, what section was that? That's horrendous. But anyway, under that, the employer has a statutory legal duty to individually risk assess you for the harm that these measures will cause you. And we all know that's not happening. It's not happening virtually anywhere. So effectively, employers and the government are playing Russian roulette with people's lives and just saying, it's all safe and effective, it's all for your good, and it won't harm you. So unfortunately, the position we're in is that we have members of our society who are committing unlawful acts of war on people. They are in breach of the health and safety framework, they're in breach of the human rights laws, they're in breach of, for example, the health and the medicines for human use clinical trials regulations, which sets out how you conduct a clinical trial on a live human subject, including in particular detail how you take a child through a clinical trial or an incapacitated adult. So the point is, we have all these laws. I've been saying this in my interviews. You know, the legal framework is all there. And actually the reason I ask people to have a look at this is because when I start talking about all these laws, people have the idea that these rights are given to us by governments and they can just take them away again. Well, no, and particularly in this society, we are a Christian nation by law. Whatever your personal beliefs are, that is the constitutional position. We are a Christian nation. And before Christ came along, we were a God-fearing nation who upheld the Old Testament. And so we have always had these inalienable rights. And they are enshrined in our statute law in the Magna Carta 1297. And I get very cross when people say, oh, you know, common law doesn't exist, common law is the nonsense, and we don't, you know, I don't know what people are talking about with the Magna Carta. That's a confusion, because yes, we are a common law jurisdiction, and our common law is the law of the land, which is a whole bunch of different laws, including case law. But we also have our statute law, right? It's the laws that have been agreed upon in Parliament by our representatives. And the Magna Carta 1297, as you can see, is still an act of Parliament. That is on our statute books. And if you go to chapter 29 of that, which is still law, which is on page 5, I shall read it out to you, and it says, chapter 29, imprisonment contrary to law. No free man shall be taken or imprisoned, think quarantine hotels, or be disseized of his freehold, think losing your job so that you lose your property, or liberties, or free customs, because we also can rely on customs in this jurisdiction. It's not just laws that are written down. We have our ancient customs, which are part of our laws. Or be outlawed, so in other words, cast out from society because you're not vaccinated, or exiled, or in any otherwise destroyed. Now that's a catch-all for meaning, for example, you don't get to conduct medical treatment on someone, which destroys them in some way. And nor will we pass upon him, nor condemn him, but by lawful judgment of his peers, or by the law of the land. Okay, and we will not deny or defer to any man either justice or right. Now the point of drawing your attention to this Magna Carta is that that is a legally binding social contract between the Crown and the people, and it enshrines the Charter of Liberties, which was granted to we the people by Henry I in 1100. But we paid both monarchs for those rights, so we paid due consideration for them, and those rights, these grants are binding on the Crown and their successors forever, and they are for our ancestors and our successors forever. And what it specifically says in the Magna Carta saving provision is that there's no derogation from these rights, and any attempt to derogate from it in any form of law will be void and of no effect. Right? Now, the Magna Carta 1297 was confirmed in 1423 in confirmation of the Charter, still on the statute books. And if you fast forward to the Bill of Rights, the Petition of Rights, 1627, which is still on the statute books, Section 4 is the actual petition, think of Section 4, and it sets out, you know, we have these ancient rights and liberties, you, the Crown, are breaching them, stop it, and tell all your ministers and your agents to stop it as well, and promise to hold them going forward. And you'll see that the Crown has written, so be it. And then, of course, we know that the King didn't uphold it, and so in 1641 we had a civil war. He got his head chopped off in 1647 for treason. And in 1688, before the next monarch came onto the Crown, we said, you don't get to do this again. Your ancestors have broken our Magna Carta and our previous charters. Before you come to the Crown, you have to sign our Bill of Rights. You have to swear a coronation oath that you'll uphold all of our rights, and you have to make a declaration that you are Protestant and you'll uphold the Church as well. So every monarch has to do that as per the Coronation Oath Act 1688, and indeed our monarch swore the declaration of the accession to the throne in November 51, and then in June 52, she gave her, was it 52 or 53? She gave her oath to we the people to uphold our laws, to uphold the church, and to oversee judgment with all mercy. Now, everyone I've asked, has that coronation oath been upheld? Are our laws being upheld? No. So is the coronation oath being breached?
Yes.
And who's responsible for that? All the agents who are supposed to be swearing allegiance to the crown, including our ministers who swear an oath, including everybody who has to uphold the Constitution. So the point about all of that is that people don't get to come in here in 2020, 2021 and get rid of all of our laws and say, there's a virus out there that's 99.9% of you will survive, but sod all of this. So, I just wanted to tell you all of that, because not a lot of people seem to... How many of you were aware that all of that was still law? Right, well the state has a duty to tell you this. The state has a duty to tell you what the laws are, and to make sure you know your human rights and your constitutional laws. None of you were taught. I wasn't taught at school. No? So this is why we're in the position we're in, because actually most people seem to not know the law, not even their basic human rights, which is quite tragic really, because if you knew them, you'd be upholding them, and well, hey. But what's really tragic is it seems to be the ministers of Crown don't know them either, or if they do, they don't care about upholding them. But the message, and sorry I went on for a bit, but the message is, please everybody, you do have these rights. You can go on to www.legislation.gov.uk. There's a search bar, and you can type in, looking for all the different laws. But if you type in human rights, you'll see all the human rights laws that come up. Type in the Magna Carta, you'll get this coming up. Type in the Bill of Rights, and it's honestly not hard. These earlier laws are not hard to read. They're in Old English, but they're not hard to read. And the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you can Google it, it's dead easy to read. And what I've been saying to people is, print these off. You know, you don't need to remember them or learn them. Just print them off. And well, you know, if you go in somewhere and someone says, I want to derogate from your right to life, I want you to wear a mask, I want you to be tested, I want you to do whatever, say, what gives you the right? These are my rights. And that would be a start. Because at the moment, people are getting away with doing all of this because nobody knows how to fight back. So I'll be here, do ask lots of questions. I am trying to get a lot of the material out so that people can see it for references, but you know, it's just me, and I haven't got there quite yet. So thank you for listening.
I'm pleased you're on our side. Fantastic, that was so informative, and you gave us great hope, I think. We need to know our law, we need to know our rights.
Yeah.
Do our homework. And the homework is what, 6 pages or something?
That's just one of them, but you know, it's fundamental. That chapter 29 basically is a catch-all. It says you don't get to be destroyed, you know, nor does your property, and certainly not your life.